The trailers for 28 Years Later were absolutely fantastic. They were exceedingly well edited with that wonderful track over the top of it. And it gave this incredible sense of foreboding and what 28 years later would actually bring to this world. Yesterday, I managed to get the opportunity to see the film, and I wish I'd waited another 28 years because it wasn't up to much at all. Hi, everyone. It's Az here from HeelvsBabyface. I'm legitimately disappointed to be making this video because after seeing the trailers for 28 Years Later, I did have a lot of optimism and hope for this film. In actual fact, I went to see it yesterday with a couple of friends of mine, and they thought that we were actually going to go see the Jurassic Park movie, the Jurassic World movie, which isn't out, of course, for another couple of weeks. And then when I said, oh, no, we're off to see 28 Years Later, the zombie horror. And they were like, oh, excellent. You mean we're actually going to go see a good film? And I was like, yes. And we all left with huge disappointment. In actual fact, my cinema was packed. Even with a sold-out audience, it was just deathly quiet. There were a couple of moments of levity where a couple of people started laughing, but I think really it was kind of politeness to break up what had been, for the most part, an incredibly boring and dull and meandering experience. So I'm going to just go through some spoiler-free stuff, and then I'm just going to go through a couple of articles because personally, I think Danny Boyle's lost. I think he's lost to the Hollywood mind virus, if you know what I mean. And if this movie is about thematically Brexit and the social media aspect, then I don't think he's hit the nail on the head, because some of the stuff this guy's been saying to me just says that he's so far out of touch now. It's unreal. So it follows the story of a young kid whose dad, Jamie, is played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, and they are on this small island, about 150 of them, which is connected by a causeway, which only appears when the tide goes out and gets covered up when the tide comes in, to the UK mainland, which is a complete and utter quarantine zone, the whole thing. The rage virus has been fought back from Europe, and the whole rest of the world is getting on as normal. There's internet, there's Wi-Fi, there's mobile phones, there's lip fillers, there's Botox, there's all this kind of stuff. And Danny Boyle himself has said something along the lines of that this is a representation of Brexit and a regression of society. Alex Garland said that this is a movie about the fear of the regression of society, because this village, all it teaches in school is reading and writing. And then out of that, each person gets a job. Are you a farmer? Are you a seamstress? Are you a warrior, hunter, etc., etc.? So it assigns different jobs to them. And Spike, that's this 12-year-old kid, is being taken to the UK mainland by his father because he's going to become a man. He's going to get his first zombie kill, and he's going to become a man. And even the village don't think that this is a good idea. Even the village say, you need to be 14, 15 years old before we do this stuff. But Jamie is just like, nah, Spike's ready. We're going to take him across now. And they go across with a flask of water, a little bit of food, and a handful of arrows. And then they go into the woods. And I know I said I'm going to keep this spoiler free, but this is all stuff which happens right at the beginning of the film. It just takes about 45 minutes to get there. And I'm just thinking to myself, why they making just such stupid mistakes? Why this doesn't make any sense. Why would you put him in jeopardy like this at this early age, even if you think he's ready? Why would you go into the mainland completely unprepared? You can easily get ambushed in a forest. It's probably the worst place that you could possibly be. You have not enough ammunition at all to fight off a horde. If a horde comes after you, and then we get told about alphas, which are bigger, stronger, smarter, and got huge cocks. I was going to say knockers, but that's She-Hulk. And so it just doesn't make a lot of sense with the decisions that they're making. And we've got to go along for the ride and believe that this is normal behavior. On top of that, the story just meanders. It doesn't really go anywhere. The father's done dirty, and it becomes a story about Spike and his mum, who's suffering from an illness which, if you've seen the film, I think is pretty obvious to guess what it is. And they go out in search of Ralph Fiennes, who has isolated himself on his own and used to be a GP, a general practitioner, a doctor, in an effort to find a cure for what's wrong with his mum. And not a lot happens. And that's really it. This is such a non-entity of a film. And in that period of time, I think the editing of the movie's pretty poor for the most part. It's very badly spliced together. It feels like it was an independent filmmaker's, early movie. And I don't say that disrespectful to early filmmakers, because to me it'd be them doing what they could with the budget that they have, which would be low. But this film has a budget of $75 million. And I can't, for the life of me, see where on earth this is. It looks like 50 million is above the line, which means it goes to actors, producers, directors, cast, etc. And I think only like 25 million was left for the actual film itself, because I have no idea how this could have a budget of $75 million. And it doesn't even pick up until Ralph Fiennes comes into the film, which is about 3/4 of the way through, and he's in it for 15 minutes approximately. And then it ends on the most stupid, silly cliffhanger. So I left that movie. We all left that movie, in actual fact, just being like, what did we just see? So I'm trying to be as vague as possible because I don't want to give spoilers. But not a lot happens. The cinematography, for the most part, I thought was pretty poor. The editing I didn't like in the slightest. I thought it was choppy and messy. And there were some nice shots. They did some nice kind of still shots of certain moments to let them breathe, which I did like. And I think the performances, for the most part, were very good. I thought the actors did the best that they could with what they had. I thought the kid, Spike, was pretty believable. Aaron Taylor-Johnson was okay. I don't rate him much as an actor. No offense, dude. I'm not trying to throw you shade, but I've not seen him in anything which has made me go, God damn, that guy's got some chops. And he's another person that's been touted as a potential James Bond. And I'm kind of thinking, well, Bond has a personality. Do you want to see if he can get one of those for his cash? So Craven not working for me. His mum, Isla, she was pretty good, even though her character was complete and utterly inconsistent. But I don't know. So I would say generally good performances, some nice stills, but the cinematography for the most part, pretty messy, pretty basic, editing pretty poor, and story a non-entity, an absolute non-entity, and it's bookended by the same kind of character, and it just doesn't do anything for me at all. But I want to go into a couple of articles here. If I was to give it a score, I'd give it a 4.5, 5 out of 10, probably tops. I couldn't really go much further than that. But here we go. And this is why I think Danny Boyle has completely lost it. Danny Boyle says he could not make Slumdog Millionaire today due to cultural appropriation. And that's how it should be. I want a young Indian filmmaker to shoot it. So it looks like Danny Boyle's joined the champagne socialist wankers because he's totally into segregational aspects of life again. You know, all these progressives that love to push and promote segregationalists. It's just bullshit. No, you've got every right to make that film, Danny. No, you don't have to have an Indian to make that film. It can be based on your own experiences, what you've seen within the society that you've existed in the UK. We have a heavy Indian population. We've got a heavy Pakistani population. So it's easy to live in an environment. Me living in Yorkshire, we have a huge proportion of people in Yorkshire that are Pakistani and Indian. So it's clearly something that you can make a film about. You know, you can make a film about a woman. That one of the main characters in this film is the mother. You're not a fucking woman. Did you have to just say, sorry, my directing duties and writing duties are over? I must now get a woman in to write all the parts for Isla. I mean, so this kind of stuff to me just makes absolutely no sense whatsoever when they talk about this bollocks. And then we have this from Sky News. Director Danny Boyle on how 28 years later could be seen as an allegory for Brexit. Oh, and it's so bizarre because Alex Garland as well has talked about, 28 years later is about the fear of society regressing. You know, look at us now with all our technology, but look at these people at the start of the film. They are living in a small commune, basic education. Instead of trying to advance, they're just looking into roles, hunter, seamstress, guard, etc. And I'm just like, it makes no sense because the whole joke and mockery in the film was around somebody with their mobile phone showing a picture of the girlfriend who's heavily made up. She's got Botox, she's got lip fillers, and all this kind of stuff. And to me, that was more of a damning indictment on where society is going in general. Never, how narcissistical we're becoming, as opposed to the regression to a simpler life, which to me would take you off things like social media, which is deemed as the enemy, according to Danny Boyle and Alex Garland. And I think they're right to some degree. I think social media has a lot to answer for in terms of how they force people into algorithms and force people into echo chambers just to essentially reinforce their own beliefs and wind them up into such a furore that any contrary opinion or point of view is absolutely slapped down. I think that would have been much more interesting. But the movie, to me, went nowhere and didn't do anything. It was a boring 2 hours, and I left it thinking, I can't be bothered to see another one of these. I'm not interested in the sequel, which is going to be directed by Nia the Marvels DaCosta. And having seen and heard Danny Boyle now, I think, I think I know exactly where this guy's going. But because Nia DaCosta is a black woman, Danny, by your own words, would she not be the right person to write stories about these white men? I guess it doesn't matter. I guess it's just a game. It's just a stupid fucking champagne socialist game to all these fucking weirdos. I didn't like the film. I'll never see it again. I wouldn't recommend seeing it again apart from Ralph Fiennes' performance, because I think he was the best thing about the movie by a long shot, and he's barely in the damn thing. But I guess that's what you get. So hope you enjoyed the vid. If you did, do give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to the channel. Follow me on social media and stuff. I'm kind of doing my old outro because I backed myself into a corner. But I'll see you guys in the next video. You take care. Bye for now. Hi everyone, it's Az here from HeelvsBabyface. I must say that I'm legitimately disappointed to have to make this video because after the trailers for 28 weeks, 28 days, months, years, you know,